So we are here on 22 years of experience, and I have here Mary.
Mary Lou.
Mary Lou. I'm Clark. But I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi. Well, thank you for having me, Destiny. My name is Mary Lou M. and or Mary. Everyone calls me Mary. People that are closer with me. So definitely, it's okay to call me Mary. And what who am I is I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist out of California, Nevada, and Utah, and a mother, a bonus mother, and a grandma. Those are my roles.
Okay.
Uh,
So I kind of just wanted to get an idea of I guess your journey early on and how you ended up where you are career wise.
mhm.
So I guess my first question is like what were your circumstances?
For sure. So during that time, my adolescent years, well, basically, I was one of I call him the rebel of my family in
Mm,
my adolescent years. So I guess that's kind of where I kind of did a lot of my own thing. I was working two part-time jobs at 16 years old,
mhm,
and with that became my mindset was much more mature than a lot of people in my age group or my colleagues or friends. But
mhm.
with that also then, I felt like I could do anything, right?
Yeah.
Like make adult decisions. So I became a teenage young mom at the age of 17 years old,
Mhm.
while working also two part-time jobs and graduating high school. So definitely I was able to graduate high school, but have a child at a young age and kind of just had to mature quicker.
And what grade were you in?
High school, finishing high school and going to college. I
Okay.
was in like my senior year, I was able to take like college classes
Hmm.
to get a head start.
Oh, so
Like
you were already thinking about college
correct.
before everything.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
And so like in terms of I know you expressed that you had a child younger.
Hmm.
So like what were you thinking career wise like in terms of college? Like what was your headset at then? What were you going to pursue and what college were you going
I had no
to?
idea.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes when I look at myself like, damn, I'm a licensed therapist. And I'm
Hmm.
like, during that time, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm
Hmm.
like, I didn't even know anything about what mental health was or is, or didn't even understand what it was like. So
Hmm.
honestly, like I did not know exactly what did I want to do at that age. I just knew I had to go to college
Hmm.
and like just kind of pursue that route and make it some way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but in when I was living in Riverside at that time during what my college years, my first years of college,
Hmm.
I was instructional aide. So
Hmm.
that was my career, instructional aide at a daycare center, at
Hmm.
the community center with children. And from there, I'm like, okay, I can do early childhood studies,
Yeah.
work with kids. I'm a young mom. That sounds interesting. But lo and behold, I'm like, no, didn't want to do that
Yeah.
because one, it didn't pay well. Two, it was just like a bunch of like 20 kids in a classroom.
Hmm.
So I was like, I don't really want to be no teacher, like with
Right.
kids. Like, and these are like, I think these were 4 and 5 year olds. I'm
Hmm.
like, so no, change my field major right away.
uh,
And then from there, I was like, let me get my at least early childhood certificate. So I
mhm,
did get some certificates then, and I got my AA in liberal studies, and then pursued my bachelor's in human services because I know I always loved helping people
mhm.
and working with people, but didn't know what I was gonna do with it.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was like, no, let me just keep on pursuing it to my master's. And then I was like, I did it in counseling.
Mhm. Yeah, so I guess you kind of said something that kind of I guess brought up a question
Hmm.
in my mind, but
Hmm.
before you said that you really didn't know about mental health or
Mm-mm.
anything like that. So I'm assuming if you didn't know, like how was that like in your household? Was that something that was widely known
Hmm.
or recognized, or was it like the same situation to where it's just like it wasn't something that was really being taken like serious?
Yeah. Well, definitely in my family dynamics between my parents and stuff like that, no, they didn't understand what mental health was either, but I definitely saw it in my
Mhm.
parents. Like, you know what I mean? I recognize it now,
Mhm.
as I grew up and as I'm in the field. Like, definitely, what comes to mind is my mother's trauma,
Mhm.
experiences of having to deal with my dad,
Mhm.
and then also trauma with losing everybody in her family, coming
Mhm.
from the Khmer Rouge when she left Cambodia
Mhm.
at 15, 16 years old. So she's been navigating trauma, but we never really understood it as like trauma really
Mhm.
growing up because my mom's very resilient and
Mhm.
strong.
Yeah.
So,
And how would you say, if it did, how did it impact like
hmm
your decisions in terms of, because like for me, when I think of that, I have friends and
hmm
they'll tell me about certain pressures that they're under. Did you feel
hmm
like that pressure was there,
hmm
or was it the opposite, under those circumstances, and knowing
hmm
like how resilient your mom is and
hmm
what she's been through?
hmm For sure. Both my parents are very resilient, and with their circumstances that they had, they came to the United States with not speaking any English.
Hmm.
So in 1975 they came here, and I was born in 1985. So calculate that. The years.
Yeah.
But definitely they came in 1975 not speaking any English, not knowing anything about money, businesses, or anything like that.
Hmm.
And they were able to even get their education. So my
Yeah.
mom went to like Cerritos College and studied English and
Hmm.
studied kind of what is it called? Income tax.
Hmm.
So she was able to do accounting and do that. And she still does accounting, taxes stuff till this day.
Yeah.
So it's been so many years, with her doing that. And so the way upbringing wise, they would always encourage us to go to school, get your education, do those things, but not know how to teach us, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because that's the kind of the cultural dynamic piece
Hmm.
that was different for us, I guess, growing up. We
Hmm.
would say, oh, go to college, do these things or study, but not know how to teach us how.
Yeah.
So we weren't taught that, but because I never even read books.
Hmm.
I was lying, like, oh yeah, I did it. I read it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
back then I was like, I wish I would go
Hmm.
to the library more or read or had that experience from them. But it was more told versus like observed or doing
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, and I can relate in that way too, to where it's
Mm-hmm.
just like our parents want better for us, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just that we have to look outside for those examples of
Mm-hmm.
better. Which
Mm-hmm.
now is different circumstances
Yeah.
because I have my parents now who have made like a bunch of progress. But,
Yep.
but yeah.
So.
um, so kind of like your background and like your circumstances from where
Mm-hmm.
you were then. I know you said you got a few certificates
Mm-hmm.
and you're like in a completely like different position now. You're a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, and I think like you're taking your
Mm-hmm.
therapist business full time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah.
what is your mindset now compared to like when you were, because I remember I
Mm-hmm.
forgot what the company is. Shields.
Oh my gosh,
Shields.
that was
So
like my
tell
first. You
yeah.
Oh, what?
So
You were only in elementary.
I remember you took me to a Dodgers game with one of your coworkers. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I gotta probably tell one of my coworkers. Her name is Ebony.
Yeah, I think.
I still talk to her to this day.
Oh wow, that's
So
crazy.
man, you went to a Dodgers game?
Yeah, we got pictures. We got pictures.
Oh man, I remember it. Yeah, but Shields definitely. That was the first job that I had out of grad school.
Mhm.
And definitely a good experience to work there because it kind of set the tone, right? Like I was
Mhm.
dealing with children, parents that struggled with substance use.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of that experience. I dealt with children that got, removed from their parents or were in foster care and things like that. So it was, yeah, that place was 2010.
Mhm. Wow. Then I was
Um,
10.
you were a baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
2010. So that was a while.
Yeah. So
Mm.
like being that that was your first job out of grad
Mhm.
school, like from then, what was your mindset, or where did you see yourself taking your career? Like when you first got it, I know
Mhm.
first job out of school period is always usually exciting, and it's just
Mhm.
like, oh, I can't wait. So like, what was your mindset before going into the field? And then like, what were your goals and your mindset like once you were like introduced to it
Mhm.
and recognized like, oh, this is how it's going to be moving forward.
For sure. So remember, like I said, I didn't know anything about mental health, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like, so definitely what I learned in school versus like in the real world of work and kind of the experiences that I had
mm-hmm,
were totally kind of somewhat different, right? Like in school, they're not really teaching us the whole importance of like the documentation, the writing. Like, you don't really realize how much writing you're actually really doing.
yeah,
So that was kind of like a shock and surprise for me because I thought like, oh yeah, I'm just talking to people, I'm going to be understanding or those things, but and the learning just stops after I graduate. The
mm-hmm,
learning actually doesn't stop. Like
yeah,
I'm constantly reading or researching or looking up information in the field
mm-hmm,
because it's constantly changing.
mm-hmm,
So my thoughts before from grad school to, now, like career wise,
mm-hmm,
like is definitely evolved.
yeah, okay.
Mhm.
And then I would say like your mindset when it comes to your clients, because I couldn't imagine being a therapist and like I even have friends who have
Mhm.
stories and I'm just like, I don't even know how, how they're strong or how they're still
Mhm.
here. So
Mhm.
like when it comes to your clients and the mindsets and hearing the different backgrounds and stories they
Mhm.
have, like how do you manage and how first of all, how do you manage to where I don't know if you heard something called trauma dump? Like
Mhm.
basically
Mhm.
therapy is is that.
That's great. That is every day. Trauma dump, and not just that, there's a secondary, they call it vicarious trauma. So
Hmm.
hearing that information can also be very re-traumatizing
Hmm.
or even take it in, right?
Hmm.
Too. So like taking their information or feeling kind of getting lost into the client's story sometimes, right?
Hmm.
Too, like being a part of it.
Hmm.
Because I am holding a lot of vulnerable sensitive information
Hmm.
for my clients, week after week or day after day, really.
Hmm.
And so the mindset I have is just being able to listen, be there for them, support them. I got great clients. So I think that's what makes it also easier, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, because I'm working with the clientele that I love working with.
Hmm.
I love dealing with like clients that got
Hmm.
anxiety, trauma, relationship issues, and depression, mood, parenting stuff, life stressors, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So I definitely love the clients that I work with. So
Hmm.
that's what makes it kind of easier to be able to do the work that I do.
Yeah. So I would say like when was the first time like you got that, oh shoot, like mental health is real. We should start paying attention to this. Like when would you say that was
Mhm.
triggered within you?
I would say learning it, like I want to say probably 2011, 12, probably the year after, like getting into it, I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
like I can see what mental health is, what it looks like, and also started analyzing it in even movies
Hmm.
because sometimes you see characters and different behaviors, right, of people
Hmm.
in the movie. So really once I kind of started working in the field,
Hmm.
was able to kind of see like, okay, that's mental health, or I can recognize certain things and kind of observe just based on their behaviors.
Hmm. So like saying what you just said now and being in the place you are now, looking back, like based on, I guess, like your journey,
Hmm.
how do you feel like you've managed without really knowing about mental health pre,
Hmm.
career and where you are now?
Hmm.
Like, what would you say about that experience and that journey?
That journey, ooh, I would say, I think since being in the field, honestly, really, like, because I didn't know what mental health was, right? And then
Hmm.
also like knowing how it can impact anybody.
Hmm.
Like it doesn't discriminate, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It doesn't matter what socioeconomic status you are, don't matter what life circumstances, like mental health affects anybody,
Hmm.
and it can affect like professionals. And I think even it was more prominent like since COVID,
Hmm.
like seeing how like people were isolating, like were more social and active. And I was too. I would say I was more social pre-COVID. And then
Hmm.
after a while I became a little bit more introverted.
Hmm.
So or not wanting to be around certain people. So I would say it changed even for me during the pandemic for a little bit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And how so?
Because I didn't want to be around people. Didn't want to be around people. And not in like a way, it's like more so like also my health, right? I want to not get sick.
Hmm.
So I really kind of took it serious and kind of stayed away from people.
Hmm. And what would you say, like, to someone because I feel like there's still this, I don't want to call it a stigma,
Yeah.
but this thing about mental health to where it's just like, you all right, like just stay busy. Like,
Mhm.
what would you say to someone who's kind of old school like that and in that mindset to get
Mhm.
them to pay attention and see like
Mhm.
this is actually real? Like
Mhm.
this could be the cause between life or death and like
Mhm.
healthy and unhealthy.
For sure. Definitely look at the warning signs,
Hmm.
right? That will tell you that maybe your mental health is kind of declining or
Hmm.
how it's being impacted. Like for me, I only can speak for myself, right? Is more so like I know when I need a break or I need a massage or I need to do more things, right? Like
Hmm.
in for myself to take care of my own mental health, right? So it doesn't bleed into the work that I do.
Hmm.
So, because I normalize mental health is the
Yeah.
biggest thing. And you got to normalize it because we all go through stuff.
Hmm.
It's more so you can just wake up and have a bad day. You
Hmm.
can be on your period cycle and have a bad day. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You can be dealing with just whatever or stressing over about anything that comes to mind or worrying about things. There's always going to be something that gets in the way, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or can impact you if you will let it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So it's all about how you look at it, how you view it, your mindset, perspectives.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing is like even in a crappy situation, I can still think positive
Yeah.
you know
Hmm.
and it's interesting because it's something that I had to train my mind to
Hmm.
be, if that makes sense. Like even in negative situations, I remember like a lady hit me in my car, like in like an accident right in Lancaster,
Hmm.
and I was like, it's okay, I'm alive. You know what I mean? Like I had to say, it ain't that bad, I got insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's hard to do, honestly.
Yes. But that's kind of like what I do though. So it's like I
Mhm,
don't stress over certain things. It's like, hey, I got insurance, my car is okay, I'm fine, it'll get
mhm,
done. Is it annoying? Absolutely. Is it frustrating? Yes. Because you gotta deal with insurance. You gotta
right.
deal with getting a rent a car and stuff like that. But
Mhm,
at the end of the day, it's okay.
yeah. So you talked about warning signs. So what are
Mhm.
some warning signs that you say that would be like imperative to look out for when it comes to like someone crashing down
For
with
sure.
mental health?
Definitely isolation, not maybe also wanting to, depending, especially if their personality is more outgoing
Hmm.
and they want to be alone or by themselves, or changes in like mood, even. You can see the warning signs like that way.
Hmm.
What else? I would say that like that's the biggest thing is kind of observing their behaviors and if their communication piece is different.
Hmm.
Or are they sleeping in bed all day? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Are they um not doing the things that they enjoyed?
Hmm.
That's also kind of like some signs.
Yeah. So I would, my next question is like, how would you handle, let's say you see the warning signs and you
Hmm.
think someone, because I have friends who isolate themselves and
Hmm.
you just don't know like how to help. Like, I don't know if this is really a question for you, but
Hmm.
like, how do I go about helping without being like intrusive
Hmm.
or overbearing or,
Absolutely. You can just text them and say, "Hey, I'm here for you when you need me."
hmm.
As
That's
simple
it.
as that. Yeah. Like, I'm here for you. Or, hey, I noticed that we haven't checked in with each other. How you been?
Hmm.
you know or there's sometimes it's like I even check in with my friends that I know, like, I don't know, I can tell by their Facebook or Instagram posts.
Hmm.
I'm just like, oh, they going through
Yeah.
something, let me just check in with them. Like, you know what I mean?
Uh,
And sometimes it's like, so it's just a quick text message like, hey, how you doing, hope all is well.
hmm.
Or, hey, thinking of you. Like, I have some friends that go through stuff all the time,
Hmm.
and so sometimes I'll send them flowers.
Hmm.
I'll Instacart things like, hey, give me your address, surprise them with things, especially if their love languages is like receiving gifts.
Yeah.
So it's like they like those things. So sometimes I even have like a list of my friends' addresses
Hmm.
on my phone. Like I
Oh
keep them
wow.
in there. And so I send them random stuff. I'll
Hmm.
Instacart stuff or send them things as like if someone's anniversary, like, hey, happy anniversary, guys,
Hmm.
and stuff like that, just to let them know, like, hey, I'm thinking of you, or hey, you know what I mean? Like, I'm here for you, checking in. So it's simple as just saying,
Hmm.
hey, I'm here for you when you're ready to talk or when you want to catch up. Life is busy, so you
Hmm.
kind of have to be intentional with it.
Okay. And then what about like when it comes to kids? Like I
Hmm.
know they're still young and they're dealing with like different traumas and stuff, and you want to approach, I guess, like certain feelings or actions that they're taking
Hmm.
in a delicate way. So like
Hmm.
how do you go about doing that? Or like, is it okay to just be like, you going to therapy and that's it? Like,
Oh,
like what's
so
the
you're
way to
talking
go
about, like,
about
my
it?
clients, like, that are teenagers or kids?
Yeah.
So definitely, it don't therapy don't work if the parents are forcing you. I'll just say that right
Hmm.
now. That's the number one thing. The kids have to be wanting to do it
Hmm.
or wanting to participate, and I straight up ask them, like, "Is this something you wanna do?"
Hmm.
Or is it something you're being forced to do? Like,
Hmm.
because that's two different approaches.
Hmm.
Because you think about it, if you're being told to do something and you know you don't want to do it, are you really going to do it?
Mm-mm.
No, we all know that. Like, you know what I mean? So I always tell the kids and ask them, is this something you want to do, or is it because you're being forced to do it, like, or parents want you to do it? And I tell the parents straight up, like, it's not going to work. Therapy is not going to work if you're forcing your child to participate in this.
Hmm. Wow. So then what would like, if there are any suggestions, what would you suggest for the parent to do?
Hmm.
Like, if that's they feel
Hmm.
like therapy is their only way to help their child,
Hmm.
but the child is not really receptive or
Hmm.
open to the help, like,
Hmm.
what would you suggest?
If they have any faith, get involved in the church or like whatever their religion is,
Hmm.
like get involved in that. Maybe some social support groups even
Hmm.
to help, like to understand like certain kids' behaviors
Hmm.
or what else. Or just kind of just let them know, like, hey, kind of like the psychoeducation piece of it. Like therapy is not going to work unless your child wants it.
Hmm.
As your child gets older, if they feel the need for it, like
Hmm.
then, definitely always come back and they have the opportunity to come back to any therapist.
Hmm.
But definitely because it's voluntary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like therapy is voluntary. So you can't make anybody do it, even adults.
Yeah.
You can't
And
make them.
how imperative do you think it is for people going through traumatic situations to go to therapy? Because I know, like, people be like, "Oh, life goes on," or "That's
Hmm.
just life," and
Hmm.
some people they're able to get through it, but
Hmm.
they don't realize they have these triggers. Like,
Hmm.
I realized while I was out in SF, like, oh, I
Hmm.
have certain triggers to where it's just like it's
Hmm.
just overwhelming,
Hmm.
and like, what would you say to that?
Hmm. So what trauma triggers, one for is good that the self-awareness piece is an important piece,
Hmm.
to recognize that, like, why am I getting triggered? What's going on? What is this reminding me of?
Hmm.
We all have triggers.
Hmm.
It's all about what do we do with that, with the circumstances of our triggers.
Hmm.
Like you said, you were in SF, you were triggered.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like from certain things, whether situation, people, right? Like circumstances
Hmm.
or roommates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a whole nother life, right? In
Mhm,
itself. And you're figuring that out, right? Too.
mhm,
And so I would say, when you're triggered, right, is like definitely reach out to people that understand you,
mhm.
your support system, and if you don't got any support system, it's like you kind of create that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's important to create that, have people that understand you that can also call you out on your shit basically too,
Mhm. Okay.
with them.
And do you think it's possible to get through that trauma, like, without therapy? Or do you feel like, cause like, what would you define therapy as? Or,
Hmm.
like, in the basic sense, like, what is therapy doing for you and what will you define it as?
So therapy is a place, like a place where people can come to share their concerns, emotions, past traumas, or current experiences too that may be impacting their life.
Mhm,
So I have a lot of clients that come for a wide range of different things.
mhm,
So it can be motherhood, parenting, navigating that. Some clients that come to therapy is like because they want to get into a relationship and build confidence and their self-esteem.
mhm,
Some struggle with a lot of anxiety. Some deal with like work challenges and stress.
mhm,
Some have deep-rooted cultural family dynamic issues.
mhm,
And I have a lot of Asian clients right now, actually. So because on my bio for my therapy stuff, I put like Asian American. So
mhm,
apparently that attracts a lot of people. I guess a lot of Asian clients,
mhm,
but definitely a lot of the family stuff, attachment issues.
mhm,
So, and attachment issues can show up in their current relationship sometimes
mhm,
if they weren't connected to their parents, even from firsthand, or things like that. A lot of trauma, you know what I mean? And so therapy is really just a place to be able to kind of express, process, talk about things,
mhm,
get suggestions, because it's not like I really just give advice, but more so have you tried these things, you know what I mean?
mhm,
Or are you open to, doing these things, right?
Yeah.
Because the work, honestly, happens outside of the therapy session, not
Mhm.
in the therapy session.
Right. Mm,
Like, you have to apply the skills, you have to apply some of the things during the week,
mhm.
not the therapy session. Is more so like processing what happened during the week, really, kind of sometimes like that,
Yeah.
you know?
So yeah, I would say like for me, like my idea, I feel like when I would say teens need it more
Mhm.
because then they grow into adults that just have more problems that they never really went through. Yeah. So I would say like what is your advice to teens? Because that's not something we're really thinking about. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't in middle school or high school, like, yeah, I probably need therapy,
Mhm.
like that's not
Mhm.
something we're really introduced to. I actually
Mhm.
didn't even learn about mental health until college.
Mhm.
One of my friends was like, I got anxiety. I was like, what are you talking about? Just go to class. Like so like what is your advice to
Uh-huh.
teens who feel like they don't need it,
Mhm.
but they know they have a bunch of problems or
Mhm.
things that they have to sort through or
Mhm.
emotions that they're not really familiar with or how to handle them?
For sure. So definitely, I that's the population I love working with, is
Mhm,
adolescents and teens.
mhm,
Just because, like I said, my experiences, like I didn't have anybody growing up to talk to about certain things. I think my life would have been different if I did
mhm,
have someone at that time to kind of unpack and trauma dump, right? All the different
mhm.
things that were happening in high school,
Mhm,
is the thing. I was really active and involved in a lot of my school stuff
mhm,
too, but it's still like I didn't speak to no counselor like that, or anybody at the school. So with adolescents, I love working with adolescents. That's the population that is seriously such a need, right? And
mhm.
like being able to kind of process and unpack things that's on their mind, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's a tough age.
Mhm.
So really, if they can, if parents can get their child in therapy at that age, if they
Uh-huh.
really want it, get it, for them. Because what I actually hear sometimes from adolescent clients is that, like, oh, my parents didn't want me to do therapy,
Oh, wow.
because what happens is there's still the stigma and shame,
Mhm,
but sometimes that's like kids got to keep asking for their parents, like, or it took long for them
mhm,
to get therapy services, but it's so important to get it for your
mhm.
kids.
Yeah. And I honestly feel like it should be something that, of course, the parents should want like
Hmm.
their kids to participate in it
Hmm.
just for them to have that resource, but the school system too, like
Yeah.
for something to be like, how schools are funded, like that's
Hmm.
also a funded program
Hmm.
for,
Hmm.
adolescents and children and things
Hmm.
like that because
Hmm.
it's a necessary resource.
Yeah.
So like, cause I just thought about something,
Uh-huh.
but you get paid to like receive like that trauma dump,
Yeah.
like, and you had to go to school to learn how to navigate through
Yeah.
receiving like
Yeah.
information like that.
Uh-huh.
But then you have regular people who call their friends up and they throw all of this stuff on
Hmm.
them. Like, what is your advice to the friends that are receiving this information? Like,
Hmm.
how do they go about right. How would you say they would go about like handling it or,
Hmm.
like not internalizing it? Like
Hmm.
what is your advice to them?
So with friends and the work that I do are totally different.
Okay.
Like, really. It's
Hmm.
like sometimes when I'm hanging out with the girls or friends and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't want to hear about shit.
Hmm.
Like when like I don't. Like, you know what I mean?
uh,
I can't. I don't have the capacity to hear all that stuff. You know what I
hmm.
mean? Like, and your dad will tell you, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, do not talk about problems,
Hmm.
like, because I do that on a daily basis, like hearing it. And I wouldn't say like the clients are just is a bunch of problems, but it's
Hmm.
more so like, of course, like it's different from when it's my work
Hmm.
versus in my personal life. I really don't want to, I want to keep my peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that
Hmm.
sense. And with work is different. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can able to hear, be there, listen, you know what I mean, all day.
Hmm.
But when it comes to my friendships and
Hmm.
people in my life that I allow in my life, like
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to hear it.
Hmm. Okay.
So I'm kind of like 2 different people, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
that makes sense. And
Yeah.
what about so like, for example, me, I have friends they're going
Mhm.
through something and they just
Mhm.
tell me all their problems.
Mhm.
And me, I take things really personal to where I'm like,
Mhm.
I try to insert myself in the problem and
Mhm.
help them out or
You
like
can't.
so just
That's
like
the answer.
so that's just like how would you support then
Yeah.
or do I just tell
Yeah.
them like, okay.
Yeah.
you need to chill. Like,
Well, because you honestly, you have to protect your peace too and
hmm
your energy level when hearing that information. If
hmm
you know that information is gonna cause like more stress,
hmm
or you, like you said, you're gonna feel overwhelmed by the information, sometimes you have to kind of set that boundary
hmm
and say, I'm sorry, I'm not in the right headspace to hear that information right now,
hmm
or I can't be there for you like that right now, or hey,
hmm
I have a lot going on, or hey, whatever it is. Sometimes you don't got to explain anything. Just
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, you know what I mean? Like, and be selective in who you're helping or who you're there for or what you're listening to,
hmm
when they share or dump stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
Because you can't take all that in. Because if you do, like I'm just saying, what that will do to you.
hmm
You're gonna lose sleep. You're not gonna, you know what I mean? You're not gonna be motivated probably as much. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It affects your energy. You don't want to go out as much, whatever
hmm
it is. Or you're gonna be thinking about them and their problems when honestly, like people are adults.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can still be there for your friends, but
hmm
like from a distance.
hmm Okay, yeah. And I feel that too because I actually had a situation to where it's just like
Hmm.
there was a situation and my friend felt like, which my friends can always come to me and I'm always there for them,
Hmm.
but that was just too much. And they felt like they basically communicated to me that they felt like I abandoned them
Hmm.
because I wasn't, I just kind of shut everything off. I was
Hmm.
like, that's as much as I could take and I walked away.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that's important too because then it's just like, well, you're not a real friend, but it's
Mhm,
just like, well, no, like you don't know how much I can really
mhm.
handle right
Yep.
now.
Mhm.
And I guess like your mental health is your own responsibility. So
Absolutely.
you kind of have to like chop them off and let
Mhm.
them know like this is as far as I could take
Yep.
it and that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Because
Y'all heard that.
honestly,
My therapist said it.
because only you know your limits. Only
hmm
you know what you can handle. You know what I mean? Only you know what your capacity is, right? To
hmm
be there or help or support, with anybody.
Yeah.
Even if it's family, friends, anybody, like only you know how much is too much.
hmm
And with family, it's of course it's harder, like to
Yeah.
cut that off, right? Or put some boundaries with. But it's one of those things where sometimes you kind of have to wear like, okay, hey, give it some days. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? All right, I'll check in with you afterwards. You know what I mean? Or like, or you just might be like, silent. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's okay too,
hmm
is a thing. But only you know, and you know what I mean, what your capacity is
hmm
and how to handle in certain situations. But with friends, definitely, gotta be sometimes set boundaries.
hmm
You got to put a barrier wall up just so you protect yourself.
hmm
Because if it's going to impact you or what's triggering or stress you out, right? Like you have to
Okay.
find those ways.
Yeah. Well, that was all the questions I have for
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
Before we close everything off, is there anything like any tips or activities regarding mental health that you wanted to share with just the audience,
Mhm.
period?
Activities. Well, definitely, I know it's the holiday, right, coming up, or this week even. Make sure that I don't know when this video is gonna be posted, but but definitely holiday time or the end of this year, right? Reflect on the year that you had, 2024, and really kind of think about how your year went. What are some things that went well?
Mhm,
What are some things that were challenging? What are some things that maybe you need to work on or change or shift, going into the following year in 2025? So it's always good every year around December time to reflect on things. I love to do vision boards and
mhm.
goals. I already created mine for 2025, because it holds me accountable. It holds
Yeah.
me like, okay, hey, these are what the things I want to work on,
Mhm.
or target, even if it's the same goals that I've been working on. Like,
Right.
it's something that I find very important. So, kind of reflect on your year in 2024 and also see what you kind of want to change and shift for 2025
Mhm.
and tackle it, execute it, take some action steps,
Okay.
whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
All right. And then I know you before we close out, like I want you to introduce your company, your
Hmm.
socials, and then not your social security. But your
Ain't no
social
money in there.
and then I know you wrote a book or like
Mhm.
so let them know about
For
that.
sure. So my Instagram page is I Love Therapy 661, and also on TikTok and Facebook. My company's name is Healing Hearts Mental Health Services, Marriage and Family Therapy Incorporated. and I wrote a PDF free book on kind of self care and giving different ideas to people, kind of because I'm still trying to figure out the ebook life range. So I was like, let me just send it out to people. Let me try to see what it's about. But I got some good feedback on it too.
Mhm.
And so it's definitely hard to write a book. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that. I think I changed my goals on that. But you know, you can find me definitely on Instagram. I'm very active on there.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Hmm.
for answering my questions
Of
and coming
course.
on the podcast. We're gonna see each other. Thank you for having me. All right, that's it. You did good.